What do you want your social media strategy? What do you want your brand strategy to be? Once you hone in on what that is, because at the end of the day, it's so hollow when you just go like, yeah, I just want people to like connect with us. Okay, cool, but what are they connecting to?
Welcome, everyone, to another episode for Elation Communications podcast on inclusive communications. I'm very excited about our guest today, Mrs. Jessica McElroy, who is also the director of social media for Elation. Jessica McElroy is a creative virtual assistant, social media strategist, and faith centered content creator who helps entrepreneurs and mission driven brands find clarity, consistency, and confidence in how they show up online. As the founder of Slay Spire VA Solutions, she supports business owners behind the scenes by streamlining operations, strengthening digital presence, and turning stories into strategy. And I can attest she is doing that for Elation Communications. Welcome, Jessica. Why don't you share a little bit before I move forward with your bio?
Yes, yes. I will thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate um even being here. This is great. I'm so excited. But yes, I am a social media strategist and faith-based content creator who assists brands and mission-driven entrepreneurs and business owners in basically crafting their story and being able to speak to their audience. I'm all about mission and purpose and intention behind creating content. And that is the angle with which I approach social media strategy. So,
All right. Well, thank you, Jessica. We look forward to diving in a little bit more today in our conversation around best practices for social media. I do want the audience to know that Jessica is also the host of the Slay Vibes Only podcast,
yes.
where she explores personal transformation, faith, entrepreneurship, and the realities of building a business while navigating motherhood and marriage. Known for her warm, relatable approach and systems driven mindset, Jessica empowers others to create with intention, lead with heart, and build lives and brands rooted in purpose. So I'm very eager to dive into today's topic on Beyond the Algorithm, Human First Social Strategy in an AI Assisted World. And as
Yes.
you know, we're ready to embark on a new year. 2026 is here, and
Yes.
AI is now a part of our everyday human experience. So we just are excited to have this conversation. So, with further ado, let us jump in, Jessica, with the first question around what does human first actually mean in social strategy? And how do you know when you're doing it right versus just saying it?
Well, this is actually a great question, and I'm glad that we're kind of starting here, because I always think that human first really speaks to your community, your online space, right? Uh, when you are crafting your social strategy, like you have to think about who you're talking to. Who are you speaking to when you're creating content? Who are you trying to reach? What message are you trying to get out there, and who are you speaking to? And I think that when you are doing it right, when you're creating content that connects with people, your audience is going to respond. You're going to, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of sparking conversation, in terms of, reaching somebody who may not feel like they are being seen in the social space. Um, Social media is that, right? It is social. It's supposed to be social. And I think that in the prior years to like in prior years to now, it's kind of become this space where it can feel like people are versus connecting with you. So you're just kind of scrolling, mindlessly scrolling, you're viewing people, you're not really engaging with others. But if you're looking at it from a human perspective, and if you're going in crafting strategy that is speaking to someone, that's the point. That is where you know you're doing it right, because people are talking about you, and not just in a passing way, but in a way that makes you feel like you're a part of their day to day life.
Thank you for that, Jessica. And I think you've touched it. It's the daily experience that humans have and understanding humans' needs, which really technology cannot do in real time, right? So it
Hmm.
does take a human, an individual to, be in the driver's seat, even when you're using AI to
Hmm.
drive the messaging, and so that it is adaptable to what humans are experiencing in real time. And as we know, so many things are happening, changing so quickly,
Yes.
that it's necessary to be human centered. So the next question is, how can AI free teams from busy work without stripping away the voice, the values, and the nuance that builds trust?
I think that we have to continue to remind ourselves that AI is a tool. It's a observer in life, not necessarily someone that can pull from lived experience. So when you are working at it, when you're using it for efficiency purposes, when you're using it for, you know, maybe editing or a quick moment of structuring a schedule or something to that effect, I think that that in and of itself um, is where teams can kind of hone in and use it for what it's meant to be, which is a tool. Like you said, we as humans, we're in the driver's seat. So just remind yourself that this is what it is. It is a tool. It's not meant to replace your voice, because at the end of the day, your mission is rooted in lived experience and in the day to day life that you yourself are living. That, and at least that's what it should be when you're coming from a brand perspective. So that's what it is. Just keep mission first, and then realize that this is a tool. You're operating from that aspect.
Okay, thank you. And I love your points about a lived experience. I mean, I think that is the crux of it all, right?
Hmm.
No one can really walk in your shoes except you. And so
Hmm.
that I think also speaks to why inclusive communication is necessary, because you need diverse voices and just perspectives, because
Hmm.
all of our lived experiences differ depending on our walks of life.
So for social media, I always say that it goes back to the two main questions of social media marketing. What are you trying to say, and who are you trying to say it to? So when you're crafting your brand voice, you have to ask yourself, dive deeper than just your demographics. You have to ask yourself, who is your ideal audience? What do they like? What are their thoughts? What are some pain points that they might have when they're looking for certain things? Um, what are their dreams? What are their goals? And AI can help you hone that in a way that speaks directly to them. So when we dive into social media, it's all about your prompts. What are you prompting AI to help you do? Because just crafting a simple caption to do that isn't going to really connect with somebody. Because at the end of the day, we know how generic sometimes things can sound when you just say, "Hey, can you create a caption to go with this social media post?" Or can you create, like, it's very generic and it's very basic. So you have to be the creative director for your social media. And AI can help you hone that to the point where you know it speaks you versus just saying something that it pulled from some random site. So I think that that's the way that you have to realize that it will never replace us. It's meant to hone in, it's meant to tighten, it's meant to really focus you, but you cannot use it in a way that now everything just sounds copy paste. Does that make sense?
It sure does. And, I've read a few articles around large corporations requiring their staff to take prompting training. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think you raise a very good point, and I love your statement about you must be the creative director for your social media. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think this is a great segue to the next question around confronting a lazy approach to utilizing AI as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
because many people have not gone through training to understand the best way to prompt AI.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would like to let's have a conversation around that, because I think there's diverse let me say opinions around the utilization of AI, and as particularly as it relates to ethics. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think, sometimes the real question is, are we blaming the tool instead of confronting, the lazy strategy approach to it?
Yes. AI has made it more possible for anybody to be a content creator, anybody to kind of dive deep into the world of social media, and creating content. But I will say that it has become somewhat of a crutch for people. Um, I know that I myself, in the utilization of AI in how I craft, you know, strategy and content for myself and for my clients, I sometimes have to remind myself that I am the person I'm the one controlling everything behind the scenes. At the end of the day, this is how I interpret what they need to say. So like I said, I have to be the creative director here. Like I have to be the person going in and crafting the story in a way that makes sense and then using AI for what it needs to be used for, which is to hone in and sharpen, but not necessarily create. And I think that, like you said, it is lazy strategy to a certain degree because you still have to go behind it and do research. Like AI still hallucinates. They make things up off the top of their head. So you have to be the person fact checking. You still have to be going behind the scenes and making sure that this sentence is as clear as possible for the people that you're supposed to be targeting. And you can really only do that if you're sharpening your skills. I started out I've always been a writer. So I am a writer at heart. I journal, I've written stories. Like I used to write fan fiction back in the day. So I I am a writer at heart. So whenever I dive deep into a story or a strategy, I'm always looking for the storytelling behind it. I'm always trying to connect it back in a flow that creates a world for people to kind of immerse themselves in. And AI can do that, but again, from an observer point of view, not necessarily from a person that's in the lived in experience. So I have to make sure that my storytelling skills and my writing skills are on point. I have to make sure that I am taking the time to sharpen those skills, to go take classes, to do my research, to make sure that I am knowledgeable on whatever I'm speaking on, so that if there's a moment where AI isn't as clear as it needs to be, I can come in and be like, nope, this is what we're trying to say. So again, I think we are blaming and saying that AI is killing authenticity. That's not true. We're leaning on it too heavily. We can't lean on it to the point where it erases what we're trying to say. And I think that that is a human point of view. I think that's a human choice, if that makes sense. I think that's where we come in and we have to make the decision not to use this tool to the point of replacing us.
Right. And yes, it makes plenty of sense. And essentially, AI cannot do your thinking. You must
Hmm.
do it yourself. And I love your point around you must know the story that you seek to tell. You must know the message you want to deliver, and AI is used to assist in that, but you are the originator of that story. And
Hmm.
so I think that's a great example of what is the best approach to using AI and developing social media content and brand messaging. So, how do you follow the algorithms and optimize so that you're utilizing best strategy, but still differentiating your voice so that you're
Hmm.
not sounding the same like others? What do you think are best practices or to achieve that?
Well, I am somebody that does not lean heavily on trends, right? So the algorithm itself is always changing, it's always fluctuating. And because of that, sometimes it can feel overwhelming or impossible to stay on top of that. So, again, I think my approach has always been w- like the message over anything else, message over anything else. So the algorithm itself is built to push everything out fast. Like you have to be creating content, creating content, creating content. And at the end of the day, that's not sustainable. So for a brand, I think that my approach is like, no, we hone in on audience, we hone in on communication. And the way that the algorithm honestly now is shifting, so it's not as, I will say, it's not as trend heavy anymore. It's definitely leaning more towards connection and curation. So you have to understand, I think, from the perspective of doing your own research and then saying to yourself, okay, consider what the algorithm looks like, consider what would trend well, what could go well, but then take that and put it in the back of your mind and then lean heavily into looking into your audience. What are they talking about? What are they feeling? What are they going through? Speak to them, speak to your community, speak to your community first, and they will push it out at that point. If it starts to resonate with them, let them do the heavy work for the algorithm. Don't you focus on that. Let your audience do it for you. And they will. The more that your message resonates with them, the more they'll do all of your heavy lifting when it comes to the algorithm. They will push it out. Now, at the end of the day, doing your research and making sure that you're on top of your hashtags and your keywords that make it easy for the algorithm to pick up on certain things. Um, but making sure that it also connects to your mission and your brand. That I think is the best way to stay centered and anchored in who your brand is while also making room for the algorithm to do its thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is foundational to the human first strategy. I mean, this
Hmm.
is how you make your brand content and just even your overall social media strategy human centered. I mean, I think
Hmm.
that's it in a nutshell. So thank you, Jessica, for those insights. Let's spend a little bit more time here because
Hmm.
for you to say you don't focus too much on the trends, to a certain degree, that's like, in many ways, totally contrary to the social media world, right?
Yes, it is. Yes,
People
it is.
follow the trending. So I love to hear more about this. And you're kind of theology is more around engagement
Hmm.
and what really matters versus what's trending. And so, can you speak a little bit more on why you believe, especially in 2026, it's important for businesses to adapt this kind of approach and less focus on the trends and more on connection and community engagement.
I think it ties, well, yes, yes. I think it ties back to understanding that people are looking for more connection these days. People are looking to feel human again. And it ties back to the fact that AI is taking over in spaces where we didn't realize that it could. So, because of that, people are really aching for community. They are really aching to turn social media back into a social space versus just a space where people come and they can be influenced and like shifted into like buyers and all that other stuff. They we're leaning away from that. And I have found that the community that I reach in my own content and in the content for my clients, they are just all about connection. They're all about honing in on feeling like they're being seen. And I think when you follow a trend, trends come and go. They're so fickle in the long scheme of things. Um, it could literally change in like a millisecond. You could be on trend for like a hot second, and then all of a sudden, views don't correlate to followers all the time. So getting views is great. That big number of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 is wonderful, but if it's not correlating to people wanting to see more of your content and who you are in your content, then what's the point? Like that was great for a minute. It was wonderful to be on everybody's For You page for a hot second, but how do you stay? How do you stick? And you stick by being your authentic self and putting that into your content. And we have to lean away from being so scared to give parts of ourselves away to other people because that is the human function. We're supposed to connect with other people. We're supposed to be able to reach people with the stories and the experiences that we have. That is our whole point. That's how you grow community. So I think that I lean towards that because I want to feel something. When I see when I see something or I see a message, I want to feel it. I want to connect to it. So if I want to connect to it, I know somebody else wants to connect too. So a trend is wonderful, but how do you stay? How do you create longevity? And you create longevity by speaking to people, period.
Well said, Jessica. So let's speak to the business who is seeking to start the new year by
Hmm.
taking their social media strategy to the next level. And they're seeking to grow their connections, to grow their reach to new communities. Um,
Hmm.
can you speak to, what is the best way to define that audience instead of listening to or letting data and dashboards define the audience versus listening to actual communities.
So, I think one of the best approaches is deep dive into your audience. So, scroll, like go in, look at the comments, look at polls in your like stories or things like that. Like dive in there and look at the creators that may not have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 followers. Look at the creators that have 2,000 or 5,000. Look at those creators and see how they're connecting to their community. See how their content is resonating with the people that they're talking to, and then allow your strategy to be focused on those people, right? Um, it's all about community hubs. There are creators that have created um, like threads. So threads is a big one now. People have leaned into like X, but threads is a big one. Go on threads, see what your community's talking about. How are they connecting with each other? And then, like I said, leaning into the creators that aren't necessarily putting out like tons of thousands of views, but they've got a strong engagement base. They've got people that are commenting, that are sharing, that are having conversations on their posts or in the topics that they're talking about. That's the way that brands can really like say, skip the algorithm, skip the trends, let's hone in on what our audience is looking for. Let's hone in on our community. Look for the micro creator, look for the micro community where community groups are coming back. People are now feeding into that again. Yeah, YouTube. long form.
Mhm.
Long form content is coming back so strong. Um, yeah, I think it really just boils down to immersing yourself in your audience, literally becoming a part of who you're speaking to and doing it in a very authentic way, asking them questions, crafting, moments for them to be able to speak their minds and give you feedback. Um, and then taking those stories and crafting your strategy around that. I think
Mhm.
that's going to be the biggest thing.
Yes, I love that, Jessica. And I think that ties directly into what Elation is discussing in this month of January on setting the
Hmm.
strategy for sustainability. And I love that because, taking time first, not to have assumptions. Many
Hmm.
times we think we know, but it's time. It's sometimes it's best to pause what you think you know
Hmm.
and invest the time to investigate and do research to better understand your audience. And so I love what you're saying. I think that also dives into doing an environmental scan, right? Looking at all the platforms, not just what your preferences are, but you might
Hmm.
be surprised where your community might be engaged on some other platform that you did not know about.
Hmm.
I think doing a competitor analysis, seeing
Hmm.
what some similar influencers or companies like yourself is doing. And then I think, as you're saying, taking an audit of your existing audience, in order to move to a new audience base, understand the audience that you're working with, what they're doing. Those could give you
Hmm.
clues on how to reach further and and faster to new audiences. So thank you for all that insight. I mean, I think this is a great way to start the new year and
100%.
your social media strategy. So we have one final question, and I think you addressed this a little, but I want to bring in the aspect of inclusive communications. So if algorithms reward speed, volume, and sameness, how do inclusive brands choose depth, care, and connection and still win?
I think that remembering that storytelling first is a big key in all of it. And then making sure that you're telling every bit of what you're getting versus just the ones that work for you. Um, it's in the name. Like you inclusive means everybody, right? It means every bit of what they're experiencing. So brands can stay true to their mission, but what is your mission? Like you really have to hone in on what your mission is for your audience, for yourself, for everything. Like, what do you want your social media strategy? What do you want your brand strategy to be? And once you hone in on what that is, because at the end of the day, it's so hollow when you just go like, yeah, I just want people to like connect with us. Okay, cool, but what are they connecting to? Right? So connecting with you and what your mission and messaging is, yeah, it has to be rooted in making sure that you are telling everybody's story.
I like
Not,
that. That's a
yeah.
great way to I think summarize today's discussion. I mean, because when we talk about being human first and human centered, it's also that means making space for everyone's story, and so
Mhm.
that leans into the inclusive brand and inclusive communications that is very essential to the work of Elation. So, thank you for being with us today. I can attest that. Jessica is a champion of social media content. She has certainly helped to elevate the work at Elation Communication, and she knows how to slay, as they say, slay that work. So tell us more
Slay.
how the flowers can, or excuse me, the listeners can follow you, particularly with your Slave Vibes Only podcast.
Yes, yes. So I am on YouTube. You can look up the SVO pod, and I will be bringing some more episodes back in 2026. We took a little hiatus this past year, but 2026, I will be coming back strong. So you can follow me on YouTube and also on social media at Slayspire VA or my personal page, which is Slay Vibes Only. So I'm on IG, I'm on the spaces. Um I'm definitely gonna be leaning more into long form content though. So you'll be seeing vlogs, you'll be seeing podcast episodes, and all that's coming in 2026.
Okay, well, that's very exciting. We'll keep our eye out for that. You, Jessica, for being with us today and for all the work that you're doing behind the scenes at Elation Communications. You
Yay.
can learn more about our work on inclusive communication by going to elationcommunications.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Threads at Jerica Talks, YouTube at Elation Communications, LinkedIn at Elation-Communications, and Facebook at Elation Comms. And until next time, we encourage you to become an inclusive communicator. Thank you.